Welcome to Pastor's Chat today. We're looking at Psalm chapter 7 today, and we'll be in it for several days as we think about David and his enemies again. Now here, this is an earlier psalm than was written by David when he wrote Psalms 3, 4, 5, and 6. But to understand this psalm, we need to look at the title of the psalm first, and then we'll look at a couple verses, and then we'll talk about the history behind this psalm that'll help you as you read this psalm in the years ahead to really personalize it and make it yours. Now, in the inscription or the title of the psalm is a meditation of David, which he sang to the Lord. Now listen to this, concerning the words of Cush, a Benjamite. And so this is about David thinking about and singing a song about this man named Cush. Now we believe Cush to be, he was a Benjamite, and that reminds us that King Saul, the first king of Israel, was a Benjamite. He came from the tribe of Benjamin and was anointed the first king of Israel by Samuel for a period of 40 years. Now Saul started out good. He started out good, and he came from the tribe of Benjamin, and we believe this Cush was one of his kinsmen, no doubt. Someone that knew him, someone that Saul took into confidence, someone that had access to Saul during his reign as king, and he must have been an evil, wicked, bad, terrible person, because David would say in this psalm, "O Lord, my God, in you I put my trust. Save me from all those who persecute me and deliver me, lest they tear me like a lion, rending me in pieces while there is none to deliver." And so he says in verse 6, "Arise, O Lord, in your anger. Lift up yourself because of the rage of my enemy." So you see, David is speaking of this Cush, who is an enemy of him. This Cush has no doubt given evil reports to Saul, King Saul, and told Saul that David is conniving against him to try to take over his kingdom. Now, let's go back a little bit for the history of this psalm. So Saul comes, and we read about this in 1 Samuel chapters 8 through 10, becomes the first king of Israel, and he comes from the tribe of Benjamin. And then in chapter 13, we find that Saul makes his first mistake as king, and he goes in and offers a sacrifice that he had no right to offer as a king and not a priest. And there Samuel confronts him and tells him he will not have a lasting kingdom, but his kingdom will be given to another. Now I don't know if Saul remembers that or thinks about that much, but it's in the back of his head, no doubt. Then when you come to 1 Samuel chapter 15, Saul is not disobedient to the Lord in taking out the Amalekites, and he's only partially obedient, and then Samuel has to tell him, because of this sin you have lost your kingdom, because you would not make it right. He tried to hide his sin, he lied about his sin, he lied about his disobedience, and that's where Samuel told Saul, your sin of disobedience is like the sin of witchcraft. That's chapter 15. Then in chapter 16, David is anointed. Remember, one of the sons of David, he's one of the sons of Jesse, he's anointed as the next king of Israel. And then in chapter 17, David kills Goliath. And then in chapter 18, David is made a commander of Saul's armies. But then Saul gets jealous when David comes back and the ladies are singing, David has slain his 10,000s and Saul only his thousands. And this is where Cush comes in, I believe, and starts telling lies about David and causing all kinds of problems. And Saul becomes very jealous. And now for a number of years, David has to flee and run for his life from Saul. And that's when many of these psalms are written, as David is fleeing for his life from King Saul, who has become so jealous of him. And you'll see that in many of the psalms, because David writes about half of the Psalms, over 75 of the 150 Psalms, and many of them deal with David during this period of time, from the time he was anointed king to the time that he actually takes the kingdom and he's fleeing from Saul, who is trying to kill him. So we'll see this psalm and what it means, and hopefully as you read through it in this light, you'll get a whole lot more from it. Well, God bless you, and you have a wonderful, wonderful day.